Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Good morning. Overnight, in the early hours of the morning in Israel, Hezbollah fired a missile at Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is the commercial capital of Israel. It's big, it's dense, it's full of high-tech companies, millions of people, and Hezbollah tried to put a ballistic missile into the middle of it. David's sling intercepted that missile and destroyed it before it hit Tel Aviv, but I expect the Israelis will respond in kind. Now, I was up late last night because Dan Senor dropped a special edition of his podcast, Call Me Back, with Nadav Eyal, a center-left journalist from Israel who is nevertheless very well connected with the Israeli defense establishment, security establishment. And I want to play for you just a few minutes of what prompted Hezbollah's, I think, act of desperation in firing a ballistic missile at Tel Aviv. Listen to this exchange, cut number 58.
And there are a lot of civilian towns, populations within the Upper Galilee.
Of course. So you have in the Upper Galilee, it's Kiryat Shmona. In the Western Galilee, it's Nahariya. And in between, you have places like Shlomi. You have all of the kibbutzim that were built there, really from the inception of Zionism, to make sure that this area is controlled by the state to be. So the strategic element of Hezbollah managing or planning to invade the Galilee was reduced or maybe erased by the IDF in the first year of the war. And then they had another strategic ability, much more important, and that is to shoot thousands or dozens of thousands of rockets and missiles, mostly short range, but also long range and very sophisticated guided missiles and rockets into Israel. And this ability by Hezbollah was also assisted by Iran. This was really not only the strategic leverage of Hezbollah, this was the strategic leverage of the regime in Tehran that Hezbollah has been building for the last 20, 25 years. And what happened in the last 48 hours is that the Israeli Air Force managed to hit, I don't want to say 50%, although some Israeli sources are telling me even just minutes before our conversation now that it's about 50% of the ability of Hezbollah to shoot rockets at Israel. And they did this in one morning. And they have other targets that they didn't hit yet. So they have substantially delimited Hezbollah's ability to strike us with both sophisticated guided rockets and also short range ones. The number that was sometimes used was 140,000 of these either short range, mid range, or long range missiles and rockets.
Meaning 140,000 is what they had stockpiled ready to go.
Before the war.
Before the war, yeah.
Now, this is really misleading because most of these are really short range. And when I say short range, I mean between 1 kilometer and 4 kilometers. So this is like less than 3 miles. And you don't go to war with Israel when you have that. And most of these elements of short range weren't hit. It's the important stuff like mid-range, 50 kilometers, long range, 200 kilometers. These things were hit. Now, after I'm saying this, it was a huge success by the IDF. I should also say that Hezbollah still retains an ability to hit Tel Aviv, to hit even southern Tel Aviv. And one of the things that were exposed in the last 72 hours is that they do have a modest version of cruise missiles, which wasn't exposed until now. And the IDF spokesperson, Daniel Agari, exposed this. And you can see this video if someone wants to Google this. You can actually see a house with a huge cruise missile inside. It's a Soviet version of a cruise missile. And the video actually shows how they drop the wall of the house, which was probably made to be seen as a wall. They drop it to the ground. Then you see the missiles. Then you see the IDF drone or missile hit that cruise missile. Now, the bottom line for the IDF right now, I've spoken with an IDF official yesterday. I've spoken with senior security officials in Israel, the best you can get on these issues. And they were, I don't want to say overjoyed, but they were very content with the results. They were saying this is much more than their optimistic estimate as to what was hit. They were saying that Hezbollah has been surprised again after the pager operation. And they were saying that they are continuing as planned and they will escalate.
They will escalate. What Nadav went on to say is that in 6 hours, Israel had done more damage to Hezbollah than it did in the 34 days of war that Israel waged against Hezbollah in 2006. In 6 hours, the Israeli Air Force took out more of Hezbollah than Hezbollah lost in 2006. I don't want to play the entire podcast. It's a long podcast. I would encourage you to listen to it for the up-to-date status on Operation Northern Arrows. We do not know, nobody knows, whether or not a ground invasion is coming. There are reports that Prime Minister Netanyahu is opposed to it. There are reports as well that he is canceling his trip to the United Nations General Assembly. What I want you to understand is that Hezbollah, a week ago, had no idea that they were in for the worst week of their terrorist organization's existence. It's really just the Iranian Forward Deployed Division, and the Iranian Forward Deployed Division is in tatters. I don't even know who Nasrallah has left to call. The head of the missile force was killed yesterday in a strike in Beirut, different from the strikes on the missiles, the rockets, and the cruise missiles, and the drone production and storage facilities. Completely different. Massive strategic victory by Israel in the last 48 hours. And what did Hezbollah do? They sent a ballistic missile at Tel Aviv overnight. So I think we're going to get round 3. Pagers and walkie-talkies round 1. Round 2, the bombardment of 6 hours 2 days ago. Round 3 is going to come up today. Don't mess with Israel. And Hezbollah has learned. Hamas is destroyed. They still have hostages. Sinwar may or may not be dead. They still have some tunnels, but it's a methodical mop-up operation in Gaza now and rebuilding. The only question for the world, because the world passed a United Nations Security Resolution in 2006. It's United Nations Security Resolution 1701, which ended the last Iran-Hezbollah war, really an Iran-Israel war, with the demand of the world that Hezbollah withdraw behind the Litani River and demilitarize that 12-mile zone. Hezbollah has never complied. So there's no need for a new Security Council resolution. None whatsoever. Everyone knows the bad guys, the evil people, are in Tehran, and they are in the southern suburbs of Beirut, where Hezbollah is headquartered, and they are south of the Litani River, and they are in the tunnels of Gaza. They are in the Houthi villages. They're all Iranian proxies. It's all Israel versus Iran. And you know what? Iran has never fought a war where it did not enjoy at least air parity. The Iran-Iraq War of the 80s was really a ground war, and no one had air superiority. The IAF just showed them what happens when there's air superiority in a war, particularly with F-35s. They have no idea what hit them, and then the dummies, the fools, the evil ones, launch a ballistic missile at Tel Aviv overnight. Watch that space. One other thing I want to tell you, we got a great show coming up. Senator Ted Cruz is joining me today. Vivek Ramaswamy will be along today. You may want to join the universe just to be able to listen to the entire show commercial free, and much of it will be on the podcast, Highly Concentrated Hugh, later today. But I do want to tell you, we've got Matt Continetti coming up and Mary Catherine Hamp, many people coming up to discuss. But we had 4 polls come out yesterday. CNN says, on a national basis, among likely voters, Kamala Harris is up 1 point. Quinnipiac came out on a national basis among likely voters. It's tied. Reuters says Harris is up by 6. They only talked to 785 likely voters nationally. Who knows what that is? And CBS says Harris is up 4. None of these numbers give Harris any kind of comfort. And I'll talk with Matt Continetti about this. I think she's losing. I think she knows she's losing. I think Trump is winning. Trump was in Georgia yesterday in Savannah, making sure he is, in fact, as strong as the battleground state polling shows he'll go to North Carolina as well. It's Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada. 7 battle states. But state 8 is either Virginia or New Hampshire. I'm not sure. Doesn't really matter. If Donald Trump wins those 7, or 5 of those 7, he returns to the White House. And Kamala Harris is dropping because she does not have 2 coherent sentences to string together. Why did she turn down the invitation to the Al Smith dinner? I have an answer for that. I'll talk about it with Continental in a couple of segments. Don't go anywhere. I'm Hugh Hewitt.